So how many people have heard me speak before? Okay, good. How many have not heard me speak before? Oh, I like fresh meat. Yay! Okay, so I always give a caveat, because one of my first years, someone didn't like me speaking. And here's the caveat. I don't follow the slides. Okay? I will give you my slides, but I guarantee you it's kind of like Mark's ADD hour here. So we will cover some topics, kind of like the curveball I just threw. So look, here's the reality. There's a lot of wage and hour things we can go over and we can learn. Everybody can read, right? Good. I've got like 80 some slides. And it goes through all the little tiny details of wage and hour, how you pay them and all. You know. Look, you can read that. Uh-oh. Oh, come on, Nick. I tell you. So you can read through it. I'm going to spend about 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask Nick or someone to make sure I know when 20 minutes ends, because I can blow by deadlines like that. So 20 minutes, and then I'm going to switch to harassment training. And it's just because, frankly, it's a topic that we all need to be cognizant of right now. Because, frankly, a lot of what is happening comes down to HR. So we're going to do 20 minutes of wage and hour. Who took my clicker? I did. Okay. There. Okay, I'm getting old, all right? All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 20 minutes of this, and then we're going to go into a real serious topic. I will tell you, I'm going to warn you, I'm going to be hard on HR, on harassment training. All right, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to be hard on you. Why? Because we've always gone the easy route. You buy the little video. You have a non-specific harassment training that maybe you have a video of a scenario, and we actually, never actually talk about how to deal with the issues. It is harder than everybody thinks. I'm not going to have a golden answer. The answer is training and creating culture. So we'll get into that in a minute. All right. So wage and hour, everybody's worried. We're going to be increasing the salary basis, right? It is on hold now. So right now, it was on the appeals court. They asked for an abeyance, fancy legal word for just put it on hold while we change things. And so what's going to happen now is they're going to come out with new regulations, basically rescinding the old regulations and coming up with new ones. And they're going to likely, this is always speculation in my crystal ball, that they're going to decide that they're going to change the actual salary basis. So for folks that didn't know it before, it used to be $450. It is $455 currently. The new regulations increased it to about $970, which is about $46.5 in the mid 40s there, which is a major increase, especially for nonprofits. Nonprofits, retail, service, where you have multiple managers at a nonprofit. Unless you're a very large nonprofit, how many people over 50,000 do you have? Very few. Very few. And a lot of them are professionals, whether they're social workers or nurses or things of that nature. So a lot of the exemption status will be a major issue for those folks. Also, if you've used the highly compensated employee exception, this is a very rare exception. I think I've used it 3 times. Anybody use it? Exactly. Because if you're paying someone over $100,000, they probably should do something that's exempt duties. Frankly, if you're paying them that much, normally this isn't an insult to anybody. I know when you start off with that, it's kind of an insult, right? No, it's normally family members of the owners that are going to get more money, that they have a title, they get more money, but they don't really do as much. And that's fine because it's a family-owned business. They want to. That's perfectly fine. But that's a lot of times what the issue is. So a lot of times we'll fit that. Longshoremen also fit in there and whatnot. So what's going to happen? What is the new regulation going to look like? I will promise you it's in an increase. Because what is it now? It comes out to about like $23,000 a year. Now, just tell me that. And think about what the purpose of this is. It's to not have to pay someone overtime. So if they work over 40 hours a week and they're making $23,000 a year, think about that. You're wanting them to work more. So poverty line, around 18, 19. So clearly it needs to increase. Clearly it shouldn't increase as far. So the likely number, is in the low 30s, which is probably right. That is probably right, in the right range. The dilemma is depending upon what the next administration, whether it increases or decreases. The other issue that we're going to see, likely, is an automatic tie to inflation. Partly because everybody's tired of the discussion. It becomes a political issue every year. So they want to tie that. That's good and bad, because I'll tell you, it depends on which inflationary rate, which region we're in. We're in a region that will have likely have lower inflation, but it might be increasing more, depending upon which one they choose, unless it's a regional approach. Because, for example, if you increase the cost of living 3% here, is that the same as 3% in California? No way. So like 46,000 in California is probably close to right. It could be. Now, anybody from California probably like, no, I get it. But it's likely more. Whereas here, that's a significant amount. So those are the things it should be out soon. I will tell you, one of the good things that they did is they asked for more information. This is kind of telegraphing where they want to go. So one of the things is, would it be okay to tie it to inflation? So they've already telegraphed this issue. And Secretary Acosta, the Secretary of the Department of Labor, actually testified this week to that topic, saying that it could be a likely reality. The other option they talked about is different levels. Does the executive need to be paid the same as an outside sales? Does that make sense? Or should the executive be higher? So it really depends on your answer to your own business, because some of you are like, no, we want it lower. Some of you are like, well, it doesn't really matter. So those are the things that they're looking at. They are also going to look at different standards for each exemption, and also the other levels. Let's see. The other thing is they talked about prefer doing only a duties test and not having a salary test. I don't think that's a reality. We're going the other way in our regulations recently. We're not going towards just a duties test, which would basically mean you have to have no salary. The wonderful thing about that, who has no salary requirements? Lawyers. Yep, that's right. No matter what, I don't get overtime. You can work me to death. It's all right. I don't get overtime. That's a good thing. Teachers also, by the way, there's a learned professional portion that kind of carves out those areas. And then they talked about certain occupations that might be able to say, for example, lawyers. We'd be carved out. We don't have to pass the salary test. Also, for those that have computer professionals, remember there's the hourly test as well. I think it's like 27.63. I have it in the slides. Don't worry, you can look at them later. That you can actually pay them hourly. Yes, ma'am.
Take your wireless mic and see if
I don't have it. I have failed my stress test already. All right. Now, I will just tell you, so I also threw in a new hot topic that I just saw. It was just recently. Okay, so have everybody heard of WorkFlex? Or flexible working schedules, work-life balance, whatever consultant term you want to put on it. I get it. No offense to consultants. I love you. This is an extreme. So what this company did is create a policy that said you can leave your desk at any time for any duration or any time. Just go ahead and leave. But if you're gone for more than 90 seconds, right? Do they have? I was hoping they have chips on there so that they know that I was gone from my desk for 90 seconds. Then you, oh my gosh, how did that happen? I didn't do that. Okay, good. That you would have to clock out. Not okay, folks. So it's one of those good intentions. Here's the idea. You can leave complete flexibility. There's no requirements that you stay there. You just have to get the job done and do those types of things. But if you leave, you have to check out. You clock out. The problem is, if you went to the bathroom. Now, I will tell you, some people are fast at going to the bathroom. How many employees do you know do that in 90 seconds? They can't even ponder going to the bathroom in 90 seconds. They're like, should I? Maybe this time, maybe not. But they're not going to even take that 90. They're going to take much longer. So here's the rule. 20 minutes or less, you pay them. Above 20 minutes, like 30 minutes, you can do an unpaid break. But you start to do 90 seconds, not okay. Now, everybody's like, well, in the 90s and the 2000s, because it used to be cool, smokers used to take all those breaks, right? So now they're like catching those guys. Finally, we can get the smokers. But you know what? Here's the reality. The flexibility they gained prevented someone from even feeling like they could just go get a cup of coffee. Because half the time when our cups, when we want coffee, we have to make it ourselves. Have to get everybody use the last pot. Okay? So the rule is 5 minutes to 20 minutes, really just 20 minutes down. And then at 30 minutes and above, it's unpaid. All right? I don't mind flexibility. I've had some clients go to unlimited vacation, unlimited PTO. I'm fine with that. Some of you goes, that's crazy. And I said, but here's the thing, what they're really smart about. You still have to hold them accountable for their performance. Frankly, that's one of the things I think most people don't think about. That's why I hate people that, I don't hate you, by the way. I hate it when you call me and say, well, let's fire this person for attendance. And if you've called me on that topic, you know I don't like it. Guaranteed. You know why? You'd never call me for your best salesperson. I promise you. You won't, that superstar salesperson that's, rocking the quote, tripling how much they're supposed to sell. You never say, you know what? They've been tardy 10 times now. We're going to have to let them go. You don't call me on that one. So what I like to do is I challenge you. I know, it's fun. It's a morning. I'm going to challenge you twice. It is a performance issue, not an attendance issue. And what it likely is your supervisor finding an easier way to address the performance issue because, oh, look, we have a policy that says you can't have 8 tardies. Now, some of you in the big organizations will get on me about this. I know. We have to have order. Everybody has to show up. I know. Everybody's got to make their widgets. They got to be at a machine. I get that part. But I will just tell you, most of the time you're still failing to address the real issue, which is when someone's gone, they're late or they're unexcused, they prevent work from happening. So address it that way versus trying to dock someone. All right, some other hot topics. Nick, you're here, right, for my 20 minutes? All right, we'll see. Joint employers. We're going to talk a little bit about paid leave. I'm going to talk a little bit of legislative. We've got independent contractor guidance, tip pooling, and for the automotive industry, service advisors. All of this is included, by the way, and you can have all my 88 slides. Don't worry, you'll be able to read them. They cover it all. So first of all, joint employer. There's actually a new joint employer bill that passed the House on November 7th. It requires that a business exercise direct control over another entity to be considered a joint employer. So this would resolve the sister or affiliate companies. It has to be direct control. This is a much more difficult standard to meet than what's currently held in the joint employers. Now, it's important that in 2016, there was joint employer guidance issued. And as you can imagine, the Trump administration withdrew that, pulled it back. So we are still going off of the old law about joint employer. We're still about control. We go through those different processes. So existing law still remains. By the way, if you're a staffing agency employee, you're still likely considered a joint employer. All right? So it's not like it's changing that yet. And then it depends upon the management structure. How much control happens between the sister affiliates? So where is HR held? Where is management held? And what are those relationships and how are they specific? A lot of times we have corporate organizations that are just set up that way and HR kind of flows between all of them. You know who they are. You know who you are. It's basically you're an HR person for all of the companies. And there's not even an agreement. So it implies that there's not even a different structure that way. So those are the more difficult things. We can have some horizontal and vertical issues. I'll leave this here because I don't want to go through too much of it because I only have 20 minutes. Paid leave. How many people provide paid leave right now? Actually, I always do that, don't I? How many people don't? And we're not going to chastise you. Okay, 1, 2. I added one just for fun, just so you weren't by yourself, by the way. So there is a new bill in Congress called the WorkFlex in the 21st Century Act. It's actually a SHRM-supported bill that would provide and guarantee paid leave. It's a really interesting bill because it actually uses ERISA. So for those companies that are in multiple states, because one of the hot issues are states actually passing laws to require paid leave. For example, New York, New Jersey, and California, and other states that are requiring paid leave. There are even some cities that require someone to have paid leave. So it's clearly a trend this way. Even the Trump administration during the campaign. Now I know it was during the campaign, doesn't mean it's going to happen or true, clearly. By the way, I would say that for every administration, by the way. But they've shown support for paid leave. The question is, what does it look like? So in this case, this would actually create a structure by which you use ERISA, which the cool part about that is then you'd be exempted from their state laws because you're actually you're stepping out of it. It'd be preempted. So that's one of the neat parts about it, is that you can create a plan. However, there are requirements to that plan. That they actually have a schedule about how many days you have to provide, and there's the cutoff line is, instead of everybody that does 0 to 1 years, 2 to 4 years, 4 to 5 years, it's at 5. So basically, if you're an employee from 0 to 5, you get X. 5 above, you get Y. And it is determined by the size of your employer. So apparently, if you are a larger employer, you have to give more time off. I'm not sure why on that one, by the way. I don't know why all of a sudden, if you have 500 employees, they get 25 days versus 20. But for some reason, they think you could have better coverage that way. This also would require to have part-timers have it. So the benefit of this act is really from a standpoint of multi-jurisdictional issues. It is also a way to avoid having states, local, and other governmental entities tell you have to do something. It allows you to have that flexibility. And the reality is most of you are already doing it. Most of you already are good employers and provide time off, because guess what? Our employees need that. We all do. Everybody in this room needs a time off sometimes. I need a time out personally, but a time off for sure. So it'll be scaled that way. And they also create eligibility, meaning you have to have a certain number of hours and you have to work there for a certain time frame. Now, what does that ring? It sounds like FMLA. It's not. It is modeled a little bit after that, though, about the eligibility. So, for example, the hours here, it's still 12 months, but it's $1,000. It's a little bit less. And it would be prorated, by the way. So if you're a part-timer, you get a proration of that time off. It would just require you to think about it differently. But for those of you that have handbooks over across multi-jurisdictions, who figure out, okay, which is the worst jurisdiction, let's write it towards that, or are we going to have all those addendums at the bottom saying, well, in this state you get this, in this state you get this. It's a nightmare. This allows you to avoid those kind of things. And by the way, it has not passed. It's just been introduced. Okay? So it's one of the big pushes. Actually, yesterday, SHRM had a legislative day at the Capitol where all the leaders of local SHRMs from the state and local chapters went to advocate for that. All right, the other issue that I'm going to just talk about very briefly, employment versus a contractor. I'll tell you, it's still an issue. You guys are still trying to avoid having to pay taxes on those things. Normally, it's not you, by the way. It's normally your employee. You notice I call them the employee. They just don't want to pay taxes up front. And you're like, well, we're just trying to help them out. That's what they wanted. But the reality is, you have a lot of issues left at the table when they're a contractor. Think about who's insuring them. What are they going to? Who's going to insure them? What if they get injured? Do they represent you? What if they screw up? What if they're crazy? And you send them into your client's workplace, and they're crazy. What are you going to do? What control do you have? Will they wear outfits that are not appropriate? And how can you control that? All of those things. If you're controlling, which most employers in HR are, you want them to be employees. You want them to tell them when to show up and what to do. Okay? So that's another issue that's going on as well. Tip pooling, they actually have withdrawn the tip pooling. They're going to be withdrawing the tip pooling. Basically what it did is really limited the options of tip pools. So for those of you that do allow tip pools, this is a very specific topic to that. And then service advisors. Any automotive folks in here? I know there are a couple. So interesting thing, for some reason, your automotive industry is really liking to go with the Supreme Court, because this exact case has gone to the Supreme Court twice in like a year, which is amazing for an actual case, a specific case, to even go once. The likelihood of going to the Supreme Court is very, very rare to go twice and on the same topic. So basically, they punted last year. They tried to get the Circuit Court of the Ninth Circuit to decide differently. Apparently they didn't follow through with what they wanted, and they granted cert again. So we're going to be deciding whether service advisors are what are called salesmen, partsmen, or mechanics. There's actually a specific exemption for that.